first of all just tell you a little bit about myself, if that's okay. I learnt to ring aged 7. Relatively young, comparatively young probably to quite a lot of people, and I come from a bell ringing family, and I learnt to ring on a ring of 5. They were ground floor, fairly long draft, about 1100 weight ring of 5, and they were plain bearinged. So they were sort of, a fairly chunky set of bells to teach a 7-year-old on. And the key thing about that, I think, is one of the things that actually set me up to to have a technique which meant that I was able to ring big bells, because frankly there was not much to me. I'm still a relatively small person, but I was a small 7-year-old, so I had to be 100% efficient with my style, and so that really was key. It set me up really, I think, for everything that flowed from there. My mother taught me to ring, and I think she realized that, she had to get all of the technique teaching right, because, otherwise it wasn't going to work. And she was quite clear about all the stuff that's prevalent in the art approach to ringing now, about learning to balance on both strokes and to have full control and things like that before I moved on. So the fundamentals were put in place, if you like, in fairly tough conditions right from the beginning. But I took to ringing like a duck to water, and I rang my PIL aged 9, and I did quite a lot of stuff as a young person. And this photo here, this is actually a photo of a photo. This is the inside of Winchester Cathedral belfry. Back in the early 80s. It looks a little bit more different now, and there's more bell ropes because there's more bells up there now. But you can just about see that's me on the tenor box at Winchester. I think they're about 3,500 weight. There's really quite a lot of boxes there. And I think I was about 11 or 12, something like that. So right from an early age, I was able, because of the technique, to ring fairly big bells, and this is evidence of that. And I think over sort of 40 years of ringing, I've been doing that for quite some time. We're doing some fairly big bells. I'm not the best tenoring around, and there are many men and women who've done more incredible stuff than me. But I think what I have learned is I want to try and explain some of the fundamentals of the technique that enable me to have done this right from an 11 or a 12-year-old, because I clearly don't do it by just mauling a bell around or being sort of, I'm not built like the proverbial brick outhouse, so there's clearly some technique to be learned. So I want to try and pass some of that on. I've got 3 sections to the talk. So the first section is really some of the actual technique stuff. And there's quite a few videos that we'll be watching in slow motion. I'm then going to spend a little bit of time about then how do you actually turn a tenor in, because that requires more technique, and a little bit of time talking as well about how do you even get the bell going, because sometimes big bells are quite hard to even get up to the balance and to pull off. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that as well. The videos haven't been shot with the intention of being for this presentation and educational. They're mostly just me whipping out my phone from my back pocket and doing stuff for other purposes. But I'm enormously grateful to George Hart, who stepped up and volunteered actually to do hours worth of editing in his own time, to sort of produce little clips that we could use and put them into slow motion as well. So without George, I don't think this presentation would be half as informative. So I'm very appreciative of that. And it's also just worth saying that I have permission for everybody who I've got a video of to actually do this. There are some children involved, so I just want to point out that I do have permission from people to do this. I was going to say that let's make it interactive, but I'm not so sure that I can really manage that. But I will try and stop at some points to say any questions on that, any comments, and I think I'll probably, about Arthur's approach, maybe the easiest thing to do is to actually put something in the chat box if you've got a question, rather than interrupting the presentation, because otherwise I think we'll never, with so many people online, I think we'll never quite get there. So please use the chat box, and I will try and get to answer any questions that you've got. And I'm hoping that there's still time at the end to have questions as well. So as Arthur said, this presentation, it's not specifically for women, but it's really for anybody who wants to either finesse their big bell technique, or possibly more importantly, actually just go, do you know what, I've never done this before, and I'd like to gain some confidence about how to do this. So it's really aimed at that sort of introduction to how on earth do I approach this, because this is something that I've never really done before. So with that in mind, I think we're going to start off with a bit of a poll, and about this question of confidence. So Arthur is somehow magically going to run a poll, and it's to ask this question here: how confident are you to walk into a new tower on a practice night, so somewhere where you don't know, and ring a normal 1500 weight tenor? So by normal, I mean it's not a naughty bell. It doesn't do anything. It's a normal bell, perfectly satisfactorily. And so let's think about this, about just ringing it behind to start with. So the options we've given here is: I'm not at all confident, I can't imagine ever being able to do that. Or I'm not really that confident, I suppose I could give it a go, but I prefer not to. Or the third one down, yeah, I've got some confidence, I'd give it a go and I'd probably be all right. The fourth one would be: I'm pretty confident, I know I'd be totally fine. And then the fifth one is: yeah, I'm totally confident because actually it's, I've done this before, it's something I do all the time. So if you wouldn't mind starting to submit your answers.
I can see answers being submitted now. Just for people, just to give people some context, particularly those in Birmingham, a 1500 weight tenor will be heavier than Harborne. Harborne would be 1300 weight. Slightly heavier than Northfield tenor, heavier than St Paul's, which is 1200 weight, and basically equivalent to Handsworth tenor or the Erdington churches. Just to give you some context there for those, particularly those in Birmingham or Birmingham bells. We've almost got the results in. We're waiting for the last sort of 10 people, hopefully. Almost there. Last 10 seconds. You haven't got your voting, get it in now. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then hopefully I'm going to share those results with you.
Okay, so what we're seeing here is a third of people, which is in this case the majorities of responses. The most popular response is that people would give it a go, they'd be all right. There's some people, 17%, who say, yeah, I do this already. And 20%, at least a quarter of you think, yeah, I can do this. But of course, there's a quarter of you in the category of, oh, I'm not really, I have no idea, or I'm not really that confident. So let's ask that question again, just to see if the data changes. Arthur, I'm not going to be able to capture that data, but to see if the data changes if we had to talk about walking into a tower and ringing that 1500 bell, but turning it in. So how confident would we be turning in a 1500 bell? We don't know.
So results are coming in. Again, we've got about 2/3 results so far, so we'll give it another. We've got a question, Julia. What does turning it in mean?
Turning it in means not ringing it in the last place all the time. So it means you're involved in the changes. So you're having to change the speed of the bell and move it around.
Again, we're about 10 votes short, so we'll give it another 10 seconds or so. Vote now, last 5 seconds. Okay, and I'm going to share that polling now.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, so it's changed, hasn't it? So you know, nearly half of the people on the call are in that category of 1 or 2 of really not having the confidence to do it, or knowing that they could do it, or knowing the technique. So that's quite telling, isn't it? So, and really my belief is that really anybody, a 1500 weight bell is not unreasonable, and my belief is that so long as you've got some kind of, you know, you've got no physical or health issues, there should really be no blockers really in terms of people's ability to be able to ring a 1500 weight bell, just for you know, for a sort of rounds and call changes, you know, for 5 minutes or something like that. So here, what I think this is what it's telling me is that, you know, people need the confidence, they need to know the technique, and they need to have the opportunities really to be able to sort of practice that technique to be able to you know, to be able to give it a go. So let's start to, thank you for that, Arthur. Let's start to talk a little bit more about how we do this, and let's address this question first of all about, does strength matter? And I'm not a medical person at all, but you know, from my own experience, that my short answer to the question is strength. It helps. Strength does help, but it's not a prerequisite for ringing the proverbial 1500 weight bell, or ringing any big bell really, in normal ringing, so normal Sunday service ringing. Sure, if you're taller, you know, you're going to have more length of pull, and if you're heavier, you're going to have more body weight to counterbalance, if you like, the, you know, the bell if it goes over, or to put more oomph into your pull. And certainly if you're stronger, you know, you have more power that you can put through the rope. And really the difference in this issue about strength comes, you know, we see it most easily between men and women post-puberty, and it comes from the sort of relative proportions of male sex hormones, which are androgens, which get formed at puberty. And those hormones, what they do is they have an impact on how individuals express their metabolic genes, so their metabolism, in terms of how we use our muscles and our lungs and our heart and so on. But that does not mean that if you're short or light and not particularly strong, whether that's male or female, it doesn't mean that you can't ring big bells. It's just that you have to be more efficient with your technique, and be more effective with it. So where strength matters, I don't think is not really in your normal Sunday service ringing, or practice night type things. It's only really, the issue about strength only really comes in at the extremes, at the really big bells or the really big long peals. So if you think about it, look at me, I'm about 5'5", 1m60. I weigh 61 kilos, that's about 9.5 stone. I'm not massively strong. I can probably do 2 or 3 push-ups, maybe 4. I don't think I could do a pull-up on a bar particularly. But you know, I have rung a pretty much 1600 weight bell for a peal behind. But could I ring it, turn it in? So this is the bit where you know, change the speed of it around. Could I do that for a whole peal? Probably not. So at that level of the extremes, I just do not have the physical strength in my metabolism and my makeup to do that. But when it comes to your normal relative, you know, any bell in the St. Martin's Guild really is, you know, is within the sights, I would have thought, of most people. But certainly the sort of proverbial 1500 weight normal ring of bell, you know, strength, in my opinion, does not really matter. So let's have a look at technique, and this is where we're going to start to play videos, so we keep our fingers crossed now. So I'm going to show you a video. First video is, as it says, Bethany. She's my elder daughter, and we're going to watch a clip of her ringing Durham Cathedral tenor. It's 2800 weight. I think she was about 15 in the video. She might have been 14, something like that. She weighs 40 kilos, which is what, about 6 stone, something like that, and she's about 1.5 meters tall. She's a little bit shorter than me. So I'm going to press play, and let's hope it works. So what I want to do is we'll just start to look at her style here. It's going to be, we're going to have a look at one whole pull, we're going to look at it at normal speed, and then we're going to look at it at half speed, and then at quarter speed. So it's going to get slower and slower. So let's first of all just have a look at what we notice about her style. Okay, so this is half speed. That went quite quickly there. So this is half speed. And then this bit should be quarter speed. Okay, so what we're noticing is it's very smooth and straight, isn't it? There's a nice long pull right from the very top of her stroke. I'm going to play it again. I'm going to talk over it. Right, so this is normal speed. We can see it's nice and smooth. She keeps her back relatively straight. She's not bending over. And we can see actually that her pull starts with her hips and her knees bending, her hips sinking down, and she keeps her arms straight. So watch this here. Knees bend, hips sinks, arms are straight, and the arms only bend there. And then she flicks the rope down to the bottom. She uses her tiptoes quite a lot actually, but that enables her to get quite a, you know, it increases her reach, if you like, you know, in the length of the pull. So I hope in what you'll notice there, so what we're talking about here is we're talking, and you began to start to see it, arms are straight, absolutely straight, reaching up as high as you possibly can. She starts her pull by bending her knees, sinking her hips, keeping her back straight, keeping her arms straight. So everything's one long line, and she sinks down into it. And then as she needs to, she bends her arms and it goes flick straight to the bottom. So the key thing there is that the whole of the body is being used with the back straight and the arms straight. And so the energy comes from her core, of her tummy tensing and clenching, if you like, and her body sinking down, and the arms straight are really is just a mechanism for transferring the energy through the hands up onto the rope. The other thing that we noticed, I think, with her stroke is also that the rope wasn't flicking around anywhere. It is really nice and smooth with that. And we don't want the rope to flick around, because what that means is that it's leaking energy. Every time it flicks, it kind of leaks energy, and we don't want that. We want our hands to be traveling with the rope so that we can feel where the bell is at. We can feel what speed it's going at, and we can feel when it's getting up to the top of its turn, of its 360 degrees, or just under 360 degrees. So we want to be in tune with the rope, so that we can, this thing about feel is really important. And if the rope's flicking around like this, you're going to lose your feel and you're going to lose energy out of the rope. So so that's a nice little introduction to technique that I wanted to show you. I want to go on to the next video now. And this is going to be Alison, who I think is on the call. And I think she's appeared in some of the St. Martin's Guild events before now as well. So we're going to see Alison now ringing at Liverpool Cathedral, which some of you may know are the heaviest set of bells hung for change ringing in our way of ringing. Again, we're going to watch the clip on normal speed, then half speed and quarter speed. But first of all, she's ringing the third at Liverpool. And I wanted to show this so that we can see her, inverted commas, normal technique on a bell that's, I mean, it's all the bells at Liverpool are chunky, but on a bell that's not massively heavy. So let's have a look at this one. Okay, so normal speed. In fact, it flicks through quite quickly, doesn't it? So that's normal speed. This is half speed. So we can see the back straight. Her body's, she's not having to sink her knees or anything. We see her body flexing there at backstroke as she's having to sort of play with the feel of the bell at backstroke. We're going to watch it again. Oh, no, I don't want to watch that one. Let's go back and watch this one again, just to see if we can see her normal, sorry. Technology, user error. Right, play. Okay. So we're watching for straight arms all the way up. The rope's really smooth. It's not flicking around. She's very efficient. And watch this backstroke at the top here. You'll see her back muscles and her shoulders. Can you see them sort of flexing around as she's making adjustments? Because that's because she's got a really nice feel of what's going on. So that's Alison's normal style on a sort of relatively normal bell. We're now going to go on and we're going to watch her now on the 11th. So the 11th is 5,500 weight, fairly big bell. And the key thing here is the technique's all still the same. The back's still straight, the arms are still straight, she's still got that flexing in her body, but you'll see that she's actually using her knees and her whole body sinking down into the bell to add the sort of energy that she needs to get the 11th moving. Okay, that's normal speed. I think we've got 2 lots of normal speed on this one. So we can see the knees are working quite a lot. This is now half speed. Look at the arms, nice and straight. Watch the knees bend and the body sink. There you go. And then she flicks all the way down. The rope's absolutely straight. She's not leaking energy anywhere. Let's watch it on quarter speed. She's using her whole body, keeping the back straight. Of course, to keep our back straight, we have to use our core. Watch the core tense, the back stays straight, knees bend, whole body sinks down, and the arms follow all the way down to the bottom. That's beautiful technique. And then the final one of video with Alison I want to show is with her on the 10th now. This is 3,900 weight, so that's pretty much the same as the bull ring tenor. And it's really, really close up to the side. She did give me permission to show this. It's really close up. But I wanted to show this because you can really see the core of her body tensing and working. And I just thought it was a really lovely example to see knees bend, body sinks down, back stays straight, core is strong, and arms just follow. Oh, no, 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 no. This one. This one, here we go. Okay, so we're going to have it at normal speed, and then it's really nice to watch half speed, body sinks down, nice and straight. Watch the body, knees bend, body sinks, back stays straight. She's got a really strong core there to do that. Here we watch it again. So you can see she's not mauling it, she's not leaning into it, she's not sort of, you know, being sort of big and heavy and chunky about it. She's just gliding her whole body and keeping the rope nice and straight so she doesn't leak energy. It's lovely. It's very, very efficient technique. It's great. Right, I want to show another one at Liverpool now. This is Luke. So he's now ringing the tenor at Liverpool, which is the biggest bell rung for full circle ringing. It's 8,200 weight, so it's really, really big. He's 15 years old. He said he weighed about 60 kilos, and he's quite tall. He's sort of heading towards 6 foot probably at this point. Now I'm being a bit cheeky here because I want to unpick the style because it doesn't work. It doesn't go particularly well for Luke here. And to be fair to Luke, it is a few years ago and he has learnt an awful lot now. And, you know, we've talked about the technique and, you know, he's learnt an awful lot now. But, you know, there's some aspects of it here where he's perhaps, you know, we could be fine tuning it a little bit. So let's have a look and see what we think. Flicks around really quickly at the beginning, doesn't it? So that's normal speed. This is half speed. So he is bending, he is pulling long, isn't he? But the first thing that I think we notice on this next bit where it's going quarter speed is, first of all, we notice the rope whipping around. Let's have a look. So all of that, I mean, that is whipping around because he's lifting his hands too early. So he's not traveling in line with the rope. So he's losing his feel about what's happening to the bell. He's, you know, he can't necessarily feel what speed it's going at. He can't feel whether he's put in enough energy because he's lost his feel temporarily on that bell. There's another couple of things I want to show you with it. I'm going to see if I can start it. No, when we go into half speed, we'll see. So at this next one, watch his right shoulder. It starts higher up than his left, and then he whips it round and it ends up lower down than his right. We'll watch it on the next one when it's on quarter speed. So watch his right shoulder. It starts off higher up here. Can you see there? And then he whips it over. So basically what he's doing is he's not pulling that hand stroke evenly with his whole body. He's putting far too much, and he does it on the backstroke there as well, you see? He kind of, it starts up here and then he leans into it. So he's doing far much just on one side. So it's not, he's not using his body evenly on both sides. So he's actually losing, you know, maybe a good percentage of his effort and energy by not using his whole body, if that makes sense. Sure, so he's using his legs and, you know, he's bending and that. So we've got a bit of an issue with rope flick and losing feel. We've got a bit of an issue about the fact that he's not using his whole body. But the crucial thing with Luke is actually about when he's starting the pull. And what I'm going to try and play it one more time. What I want for you to see, if you can see it in the backstroke, you'll see he comes down and then he kind of accelerates the pull to the bottom. So let's watch this backstroke when it goes a bit slower. So he's starting, and then he goes vroomp there with the flick at the bottom. So there's quite a lot of energy and acceleration in the bottom half of the pull. Let's watch it one more time. So here it comes. He's kind of doing stuff, and then it goes boof, he accelerates at that point there. Now, yes, you do need to pull long, and you do need to do this follow through, just like you do in a golf swing or a cricket swing or a tennis swing or whatever. Yes, you do need to follow through, it always helps. But I want to talk about the issue with prioritizing the bottom half of the pull, which is what Luke's doing. And I want to use this analogy of pushing a swing to do this. We've all probably, most of us have pushed somebody on a swing, and what we don't do is we don't sort of wait till they're halfway through the swing and then give them a shove, because it kind of jolts them around and it's not really that effective. We're not going to get them going higher, and it kind of jolts them and it disrupts the flow, which is the equivalent of leaking energy. The other thing that we don't do is we don't obviously start pulling when the swing's still coming upwards on its arc, do we? Because, you know, we're fighting against it and so on. What we do is we let the swing go to the highest point, and then just at the point that it's actually coming back down is when we put the acceleration in. And depending on how quickly we want that person to go up higher, depends on how much body effort we're putting into that. You know, we might just do it gently with our arms, but we might really lean forward into it and tense our core and put in lots of acceleration if we really want them to go higher. And of course, all of these analogies is what's going on a bell rope. So what we want to do is we want to capture the point that the bell it's reached its full circle and it's starting to come back down, and that's the point that we put in most of our energy. And depending on how hard we need or fast or how much speed we're changing the bell around at, depends on how much follow through right to the very bottom that we do. But the crucial point is you start the pull at the very, very beginning, just like you would on a swing. And that's what Luke's needs to work on in his clip. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do a comparison between Luke, which we've already seen on the left, and actually it's me on the right. So we're both the same. We're about the same weight. but he's a bit taller than me, and he's obviously male and younger as well. But have a look at the difference in terms of the technique here between the two of us. So it's one whole pull, full speed, half speed, and then quarter speed again. Oh no, it's not. Sorry. Here we go. Actually, that's not full speed. That's probably half speed straight away, isn't it? So you can see I'm using my body relatively more evenly. I'm not prioritizing one side or the other. The rope's a lot smoother because I can feel what's happening. But the bit I want you to really watch now is how long I keep my right arm straight for in comparison with him. So if you watch it on this backstroke, so watch this backstroke coming up now. So my right arm straight, we're both at full stretch, we're both on tiptoes, but my right arm stays straight. Mine's straight. Look at his right arm, it's bent already. Mine's straight, 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 and then it starts to bend. So the effectiveness of that is that by keeping my arm straight, obviously my left arm isn't quite so straight because it's lower down, but by keeping my arm straight for longer, I'm having to therefore use the whole of my body more, and I'm using both sides of it to sink down, whereas Luke is trying to put the power through his arms, and our arms are not as strong as our core, and then it means that he's not starting the pull right at the very beginning, and he's not doing it with his whole body, and the rope's flapping around as well. So, and he's better at it now because we had a conversation about it. So hopefully that's some interesting stuff in there to watch. So watch the arms now. So if you watch his, elbows bending already, mine straight, my back straight, and that's the point there. Okay. I've just got...
Oh, sorry. There's a couple of things in the chat box that I think link nicely to this, if that...
Okay, yeah, sure, fire away.
So Steve said, is more energy put in the backstroke, or is it even between the two strokes?
Well, actually, it's fairly even. I guess the only difference between the two strokes is that on the hand stroke, you need to be lifting the... I'm just going to unshare my screen just so that you can see me. There. Is that working? Anyway, yeah, here we go. A hand stroke, you obviously, well, it's not obvious, but you need to pull it a little tiny bit harder because you've got to lift the weight of the rope up as well. So generally speaking, we tend to need to pull the hand stroke ever so slightly more than the backstroke for that very reason. That's my opinion anyway.
And another question from Nick. How important is core strength relative to the importance of good technique? For example, you can learn good technique, but you might not naturally have much core strength.
Well, I think everybody's got core strength because we can stand up, can't we? And we can, we can move about. I think that level of core strength is probably what I'm talking about. And, I'm not talking about you have to build a six pack if you're going to do this. But like I said earlier on, I think core strength, technique will get you 90% of the way there for most normal day-to-day, most Sunday service practice night ringing. That when the overall sort of strength kicks in is really in the extreme stuff, the really big extreme stuff.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. That's oh, no, sorry, another one's just come in. Julia, have you always coached with standing on big boxes? I find that's a real problem. I don't like the height of the floor. Not a gender thing, possibly due to wearing varifocal glasses. Maybe.
Yeah, I hear that quite a lot. Actually, it is quite intimidating to stand on boxes. I mean, they are unfortunately mostly required in most towers because of the volume of rope. There's more rope on a big bell, so it's better to be stood away from it and for the length of the rope to fall. So it's something that you just kind of have to get used to, I think. I mean, I'm used to it because I was so small. I don't, I spent my first years ringing on boxes and chairs and all sorts of bits of things. Regarding the varifocals, I can understand that completely as you're looking down and things like that. Maybe you just need to have a think about, do you need to be moving your head so that, can you not just keep looking in one portion, whether it's up there or down there? I'm not sure. Yeah, it's tough. I get that. If you've got a fear of standing on boxes, it is quite tough. I do get that. And I'm not so sure there's an easy way around it, I'm afraid.
Great, thank you. That's everything so far.
Okay, let's go back to, I just got one final clip in this one, just in terms of the basic technique. So this next one is a girl called, well, she's a girl in this picture. She's not now, but she's Gemma Mills as she was then. She's now Gemma Myers, and she's ringing Exeter tenor, which is a 7200 weight bell. She says she was 15 in the clip and she thought she weighed about 50 kilos. And I just want to play this as a nice little summary of everything that we've been talking about so far. So this is normal speed. This is, I think we've got two normal speeds. And then this is half speed, so we can see everything we can see. Arm straight, bends the knees, sinks the hips down, keeps the back straight, keeps the arm straight, starts the pull right at the top, drives it down. A lot of follow through because it's a big bell for someone who's relatively light and not particularly strong at that age. Watch this, tiptoes, full strength, bends the knees, keeps the back straight, arms whip through at the end. Lovely. There you go. 7200 weight bell. There's a 15-year-old quite, and she's a bit of a slip of a thing, isn't she? So it seems to be on autoplay now. Okay, so I'm going to, this is the point that I want to start going on to sort of turning in a big bell. But so before we do that, are there any other questions that people want to talk about just in terms of basic technique before I move on to turning a bell in?
Yeah, we've had Simon's asked, are you happy with people going on tiptoes a little bit? We often hear people told to keep their feet flat. I'm smiling because I've been told off about this numerous times. I always went on tiptoes to reach higher and still use a slight flex and raising of heels as part of my rhythm.
Yeah, I am actually. I don't think I am as part of an aid for ringing big bells. As an absolute norm, I don't think you need to. I don't think in Alison's clip of ringing the third, I don't think she was going on tiptoes. And if you're just ringing a second at Harborne, I don't think you should be going on tiptoes. I think it's you can get a bit swaying and things like that. But I always go on tiptoes, for example, when I'm starting the bell. So the phrase is pulling the bell off. I always go on to tiptoes to my very, very, very top of my reach. And every clip that you will be seeing on this, except for Alison's on the third, you will be seeing people go on tiptoes. And the reason for that is it just increases the reach, and it enables you to sort of start the pull, if you like, for longer. So yeah, in fact, I was talking to Alan Ainsworth a few weeks ago, who some of you will know is a bit of a god when it comes to ringing. He said he's rung 1,500 peals on a tenor and 1,000 on N-1, something like that. He really knows what he's doing. And he said he used to really know when he'd worked hard, when his feet hurt and his calves, because he'd been going up on tiptoes and down and putting a lot of energy through that joint there. So yeah, definitely it's all part of the technique for big bells, but I don't encourage it for just inverted commas normal ringing.
Thank you. I think so far there's nothing else in the chat box. If people want to raise their hand, or you should be able to unmute yourselves, now's a good time, or we'll give it a couple of seconds. and then I propose we move on to the second part. Okay, thanks,
So
Jean.
I've got, okay, all right, wonderful. Right, let me just go, right, share screen again. Off we go. So I want to talk now a little bit about turning in a big bell. So this is the bit where you're starting to ring method and the tenor is involved rather than ringing in the eighths, you know, at the back of the change all the time. Now I've just done, obviously this is, well, it's not obvious, but this is plain hunting on 4. So, you know, arguably this is a tenor bell. And you know, the big thing about something like this, the big fear is that you can ring the bell down to lead, but you can't get the blooming thing back again, you know. So you need to be doing something different in order to change the speed of the bell. And when it's a, you know, relatively normal light bell, you would just maybe flick the bottom of the backstroke pull a little bit more, just, you know, when you're at lead, and it will probably just go up. Maybe you don't even need to do anything different apart from just pause or balance. But on a big bell, you need to do something different. You can't just assume that you're just going to wait on pause and it's going to wait there. It won't. You have to do something different. So assume that you do all the technique stuff that I've been talking about before. The most important thing you need to do is this. I don't know if you can see me moving my cursor and my mouse, is this backstroke lead here. You need to be pulling that. You need to be definitely starting on your tiptoes, I would say, and you need to be absolutely definitely pulling it right from the very top of the stroke and accelerating and giving it an extra flick through right to the bottom on that backstroke. And you need to be making sure that the rope's tight so that you're driving all that energy through. However, you don't want to be just thinking about that backstroke there, because you want to be thinking about how you're getting into that backstroke from this handstroke here. So if you're getting into this backstroke from the handstroke just before it, just by flopping the handstroke, so basically you're approaching the backstroke and the bell's just flopping or dropping or something like that, you're going to have an even bigger job to turn the speed around at this backstroke to get it slow up to handstroke here. So you need to really be thinking about what you're doing on this handstroke here, and you need to be driving this handstroke in here so that this backstroke is not flopping, so that it's sort of relatively in control, and you know, it's got enough momentum on it for you to then give it a long, firm acceleration in order to get this handstroke up here. So I'm immediately saying that to think about this handstroke, or to do something with this handstroke, you need to be thinking about it the handstroke before. And then on top of that, if you're on a really, really big bell, or you're going really, really quickly, you actually want to be thinking about how you're approaching this handstroke. So actually, if you're approaching this handstroke from this backstroke here, sorry, my boiler's just come on, I hope it's not too noisy. If you're approaching it by pulling this backstroke, I don't know, either flopping it and it's not doing anything and the bell's starting to drop, you know, you're losing momentum and energy out of it. So you don't want to be flopping it. But similarly, you do not want to be flopping this pulling this backstroke here too hard, so that this handstroke is gone over the balance and you're having to fight it. So you really need to be thinking about, ideally, this backstroke here being just the right amount so that you can drive this handstroke in here quickly, so that this backstroke, you've got enough momentum on it to give it a long, firm acceleration so that you get the bell up for this handstroke here. So the key bit in all of that is you have to plan ahead. So as you're coming down to lead here, you have to be thinking, right, I need to get this handstroke up. So you need to be doing something with the bell, and planning what you do with it to make sure it's not either going over or dropping, so that you can turn around the speed. And then in order to do that, the other thing to be thinking about is what you're physically doing with the rope to achieve that. So when we're turning in a big bell, we don't just stay in the same place on the tail end or the sally. A really nice simple way of helping you adjust the speed and things like that is to actually, what I call, work the tail end. But what I mean by that is I adjust where I'm putting my hands on the tail end. So sometimes, you know, I might be, I don't know, only going 5 centimeters higher or lower on the tail end or the sally. But other times, if the bell, if I'm having to really move the bell and really dramatically change the speed, or it's a really, really big bell, I might be going 30, 40 centimeters in one direction or the other on both the tail end and the sally. And what I have to do, therefore, when I'm making that big adjustment, is I have to really tense my core, so really engage all the muscles in my tummy and my lats and my trapeze in my back, to just engage everything, to then transfer all of that energy through my hands. So you have to, you know, you have to have quite tough hands in order to change the speed of the bell. And I use all the sort of tricks of altering the tail end. You cannot ring a big bell and change the speed of it by staying in the same place on the sally and the tail end. You'll fatigue yourself far too much. So, and I guess the third thing I want to say about turning in or moving the speed of a big bell around is that we have to be really, this thing about planning ahead is important, but we have to also be mindful not to put in too much energy. So one of the things that I think we can certainly do when we're in a bit of a panic maybe is we overpull, don't we? And so what we need to do is make sure that you put in enough pull in whichever direction that you want to go in, and we don't overpull, because as soon as you start overpulling, you're having to then stop the bell and break it and all of that, and it's just a complete waste of energy, and you just don't want to be doing that. And you know, if you're at all, you know, going right back to the beginning about actually it's all technique, it's about efficiency. So we want to be putting in enough energy and not more than we need. In fact, just enough. we definitely don't want to be putting in more than we need. So I'm going to show a clip here, and this is a clip of Nick Brown, who's I think arguably the best tenor ringer of his generation at the moment, and he's turning in St Mary Le Beau tenor, which is 4200 weight. It's going quite fast, and he's turning it into Bristol. And what I want to do is, I've shown on the right hand side here, this is within the first lead of Bristol Max, and we're going to see the video clip starting with him in 12th place here, which is actually a backstroke. So he's starting there. So we're going to see him ring this hand stroke. And then what I want you to do is I want you to watch him take in, I don't know, at half a meter maybe, he takes in a massive amount of tail end here to pull this backstroke in quickly. He's also at full stretch. He's on tiptoes, I think. And he you know, he does all the stuff that we were talking about before, about keeping his back straight, keeping his arms straight, sinking his body, and he pulls it right from the top of his reach on a really tight tail end, because he's taken up, I'd say, about half a meter to pull this backstroke in, and he's done that to give it enough momentum for it to go back up to this hand stroke here. Then we see him ringing this backstroke, which is a quick one. He doesn't do anything dramatic with it because he knows he doesn't need to get it back up to go slowly. He's just going back downwards. So he just rings a fairly normal, you know, casual backstroke here. This one here is a hand stroke. So he's in 10th place now. He's a hand stroke. And he again catches it quite high because he's trying to go quickly. He's trying to move the bell and ring it earlier. But if you notice and watch carefully when we watch it, you'll see that he actually gives it a little bit of pull and weight. You know, you'd think he's going to go down. He doesn't want to pull it too hard, but actually he does. And he's doing that to give it enough momentum so that he can then pull this backstroke in really tightly. Again, he does it, you know, at full stretch, straight arms, straight back, blah, 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 takes the tail end up. so that he's pulling this backstroke in quickly in order to get the hand stroke up again, back up into tense place. And then he then pulls the backstroke in again. I think he takes some more tail end in. He pulls the backstroke in again to go quickly, but he doesn't do it really dramatically. He's not right on tiptoes. He's just doing a normal quick backstroke. And that's because this hand stroke, he doesn't need to change the speed of it here. He just needs to stay in the same place. So he pulls it in quickly, but he doesn't really, he's not on tiptoes. He's not accelerating it down. He just kind of hovers around in the same place. Then he pulls the next backstroke in. I think he even takes up some more tail end again. And then you'll see he floats this hand stroke here. He floats, he just does nothing with it. He just kind of floats it. And that's because he knows he's got the next few blows, he's just sort of coasting. So let's see if we can see that. There's a lot going on. It's quite quick. And just to be clear, he's the one in the white shirt, not the woman in the blue dress. It's actually taken at a video just after Gemma, who is the girl that we watched at Exeter, on her wedding day, actually. So, you know, that's why everyone's in quite formal dress. And actually the bride and groom are ringing, and she's conducting it in her wedding dress. It's quite sweet, but we're not actually looking at that. So he's the one in the white shirt. So let's see if we can see it. There's a lot going on. Okay, so this is the hand stroke here. Look at that, masses of backstroke, long pull, float up to hand stroke in 12 space, normal quick backstroke, high quick hand stroke, but he put some effort into it, and in a really quick backstroke acceleration, up it goes for the hand stroke, pulls it in, floats this hand stroke here, pulls it in again, takes up more tail end, floats this hand stroke here, watch it just float, and then he goes down, and off he goes down. Okay, so there's a lot going on there. Let's try and watch it again. So here's the hand stroke. Watch the tail end. Look how much he takes in. And then he lets the hand stroke go up. Normal casual backstroke. High hand stroke, but he pulls it even though he's going down, and then pulls that backstroke in hard because he wants to get the hand stroke up. And then he brings a normal backstroke. He floats his hand stroke a bit. He takes in more tail end now because he wants to go quickly. Floats his hand stroke because he doesn't need to do anything with it. And then down he goes. Does anyone want to watch that again? There's a lot going on in it, I know that.
I think
okay. One more go.
I think so.
Okay, one more go. Okay. Tail end goes in. Big long pull, full stretch, because he wants to get the hand stroke up. Nothing too dramatic with his backstroke. Pulls the hand stroke in, even though he's going down. Big long backstroke pull because he wants to get the hand stroke up. Nothing too much going on with this backstroke. Floats this hand stroke because he's not really going anywhere. Takes some more tail end because he's going back quick again. Floats this hand stroke because he's not going anywhere, and that's fine. And then off we go. So the crucial thing there, when we're watching Nick, all the fundamentals are there. Straight arms, straight back, bending knees. You know, he's not doing anything. He's not, you know, he's not bending forward or anything. He's working the tail end really dramatically, which is what's required. He doesn't put in energy where he doesn't need to. He floats it if he needs to, and that's totally fine. But he's planning ahead the whole time because he's conscious of, in 2 blows time, I'm going to need to do this point, which are those ones where you just do one place. You know, I need to do X or Y, and he's planning ahead, and you can see him planning ahead with what he's doing each stroke. Each stroke is doing something different with the rope and the amount of acceleration he's putting into the rope.
I think, as you said, Julia, there's lots going on in that video, but just to remind people that we are recording this, and, you know, encourage people when we share the link to go and look at the presentation, and obviously, you know, slow it down themselves. We had a question, Julia, where and how do you let the tail end out or tail out?
Where and how? At the bottom of the pull, when your hands are kind of loose and doing nothing. At the bottom of the hand stroke, as you're transferring your hands onto the rope after you've pulled the sally, that's the point that you either take it in or let it out. Yeah. And obviously on the sally, it's to do with where you catch it. Yeah. So.
Lovely. Thank you.
That's okay. I'm just going to turn my main light on. It's getting dark. Hold on. There we go. Sorry about that. I'm conscious of time, so what I want to talk about now is actually how we get the bloomin' bell going. You know, some of us are so light that, you know, and some bells are so heavy or deep set that, you know, we could hang off it and take our feet off the floor and the thing wouldn't move. So you have to have a technique to pull the bell off, is the phrase. And I think it equates, it's called, the technique I use is called bouncing it off. And it's similar to how you bounce start a ball in tennis. You know, when the ball's flat on the floor and you just kind of bounce it up. And there's a lovely little clip of the lovely Roger Federer doing this here. But basically what we're doing is we're going on to absolute full strength tiptoes and reaching up as high as you possibly can, both hands on the sally, arms absolutely straight. And then if it's a really big bell, I then go, right, that's where I am, and then I go another hand height higher. I just make myself go as very high as I can. And then I just sink my body down, usually using I don't know if you can see me, but using my laterals here. I sink my body down and I sink down into it. And then I release my body. So the bell is starting to move like this. And sometimes the first pull might even just be tension in the rope and you're starting to do this. But eventually you get this sort of rocking motion, and eventually you can feel the bell just rocking when it's against the stay against the slider, and you can just grab hold of it and pull it a little tiny bit more until it's bouncing, and you can get it, you know, you can either just start the pull when it's bouncing, or you can pull it onto balance and hold it if you're strong enough to do that. So there's the analogy here is with the tennis ball. So we see Roger Federer, he just bounces it, it comes up, he's grabbing it and bouncing it again on his way down, and he's grabbing it about and bouncing it again on its way back up. And the equivalent is happening when we're bouncing the stay. So we're absolute, the key thing here is absolute full stretch with our body. We sink our body down and then release it, and then we sink it down again as the bell's starting to bounce. And then we can catch it then. Then we've got enough momentum basically to start the pull. And the key thing about starting a pull when you're ringing a big bell, the bigger the bell, the bigger the wheel, the slower it turns. So you have to anticipate, you have to start the pull earlier than it's your turn. So if you're ringing on 8 bells and it's a big bell, you don't wait till the 7th's gone and then start. You pull, you start a bit earlier, you start when the 6th is going. Because trust me, by the time you've got the thing going, you'll be in the right place. If you wait till it's your turn on a big bell, you'll be late. And if you're at York Minster, for example, on 12, I start pulling the bell down when the 9th's starting. And by that point, I'm in the right place. So that's another tip, is just don't wait till it's your turn, start earlier on that setting. Okay, so that's bouncing it off. Some people don't like bouncing it off, some people are a bit sniffy about it. It damages, I don't think it does. I've been doing it all my life, and frankly, I have no other option. I am just not strong enough to get some bells going. So, but I have no evidence that it damages the stay. You're not whacking it, you're just literally teasing it off like this, in the same way that Roger Federer is doing. He's not whacking the living daylights out of it, he's just teasing it off. So I'm all right with it. Well, it's a necessity. So I think that concludes. I just want to summarize. So generally speaking, for me, efficient handling, technique is all about efficient handling, and it's about feel. So if there are any people on the call who are teachers, it is your duty to make sure that people learn technique of efficiency and feel right from the very, very beginning. So when I'm teaching, I always make sure that people in the first handling session can balance the bell at backstroke. Because even if people are coming to the sort of come and have a go and see what it's all about sessions, I always get them balancing a backstroke on the first go, and with them doing it, you know, with my hand nearby, but I need for them to feel it. And you see them go, oh, you know, as they're feeling the balance and they're holding it on balance, and they can move it ever so slightly like this on balance, and they go, oh, and they get it. And you need to be teaching feel right from the very beginning. And it's also in the stuff in art talks about this, and other people might talk about this, you know, being able to balance a bell, every stroke to order. And I would say you not only do that on the bell that you're teaching them on, but on every single bell in your tower. They have to be able to balance the bell on every single bell in your tower, so that they fit, just in the same way that a clutch on a car feels different. You know, they get the feel of the bell differently, and right from the beginning. So this efficient handling, so that everyone's hands are in line with the rope, it's not flapping around, they're not lifting their hands too early like Luke was doing a bit, and so on. So it's crucially important to get, you know, the early stages of technique right, because it's really hard to unlearn bad technique. We all know this. And then, you know, the technique is about using your whole body. It's about using your legs. It's about using your core. It's about keeping your arms straight. And it's crucially, it's about focusing on the energy at the beginning, at the top of the pull, and accelerating down to the bottom as much as you need. It's not the bottom of the pull, it's the top of the pull which is crucial. And try not to leak energy through any unnecessary rope behavior or weird body action yourself, and so on. And then when it comes to turning it in, it's about planning ahead. It's about putting in just enough energy, not wasting it, and it's about working that tail end and working where you catch the rope. So that's the summary, I think. I did actually have one little last clip. So if we remember, we talked, didn't we, at the beginning about the 1500 weight bell, how would we feel walking into a tower? And I'm gonna, another clip of my daughter. This is a 1500 weight bell, and we walked in, we were visitors. So she's my kitten's just arrived, here she is. She's just past learning to ring level 5 last year, so she's not massively experienced, you know, but she just walked into the tower and did this and just rang the bell really nicely, and I just thought it was a nice little summary to show that it is possible. So here we see her. It's nice, it's smooth, arms straight, body working. She's not having to bend her knees too much, not like she was earlier. She still goes up onto tiptoes a little bit. She probably doesn't need to, but she does. And it's all just nice and smooth. She's not massively experienced. She's not massively heavy. She doesn't know the bell, but she's just got the right technique to do it, because that's what this is about. It is possible to do that. And that's what I wanted to talk about.
Thank you ever so much, Julia. We, before I do sort of proper thanks and concluding thoughts, we've got quite a lot going on in the chat box, so I will engage with as much as I can sort of the next 5 minutes or so. I apologise to people in advance if we don't get through for everything. First of all, a question from Eric. Is it wrong to let out the tail end at the top of the backstroke? He finds it easier to get the adjustment right there.
Sorry, say that again, I didn't quite hear that.
Is it wrong to let out the tail end at the top of the backstroke?
To let it slide through? It's not a technique I would advocate, mostly because I think you're losing energy and feel through the rope. You know, you need to have that, you need to have the tension and the feel. So I would try, you basically get used to how much you need to let it out. So if you find that if you know that you took, I don't know if you can see me, you know, you took up 10 centimeters to pull it in, then just frankly let 10 centimeters out at the bottom of when you're transferring from the sally to the backstroke. I don't really like letting it slide through at the top of the stroke. Sometimes we have to in an emergency, but it's not something I would advocate as good technique.
Super. Thank you. A question from Stephen John. How do you suggest that one builds confidence in ringing a bigger bell than one is used to? This is definitely something I would like to hear about, actually. Opportunities seem scarce, so it's difficult to get more confidence. Scared of over pulling and the bell going over. and not being able to get it back. And I suppose there's little chance of that actually happening. But again, I think it's confidence, isn't it?
It's confidence, and I suppose, well, I mean, if you're finding that you're not getting the opportunity to try many different bells, then I suppose we need to start asking, don't we? And as we, as with anything, when you're trying to learn a technique, don't go straight into the very biggest heavy bell. Work your way around gradually. Maybe get someone that you trust to watch you, give you a piece of feedback afterwards, and a mentor, to give you some feedback. If you're at all worried about your technique, maybe get someone to video you, so that you can see if you're doing any sort of naughty habits that Luke was doing, or anything like that, and see, oh right, actually, yeah, I am lifting my hands, or actually I am doing this, or I do that quite a lot. I video people in slow motion quite a lot. My youngest daughter, she's 12, and she has the habit of, when she's doing a hand stroke pull about chest height, she takes the left hand off. She doesn't take it away because she knows she's got to keep it close to the rope, because I nag at her about that. But she takes the left hand off and then drops it down to the kitten. Drops it down to the bottom, and she said, "No, I'm not." And I was like, "Yes, you are." "No, I'm not. What would I know? I'm only a mother." So I videoed her, and then she went, "Oh yeah." And so we then went back to basics a bit, and sort of worked on it, and it just meant that she was able to put more energy through the rope, to improve technique. So, I would work your way around. Ask if you can have a go if you're not getting it offered to you. And just build up to it gradually and see what it feels like. It's feel. There's a lot of it's feel. Get some feedback as well, and just start to build your confidence gradually, because it's all possible. But just start to build your confidence gradually. But if you're finding that the opportunities aren't there so much in your tower, go to another tower. Try things out in other places. Go to ringing practices, and just if you want to try something, go out and try it.
The camera never lies. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, that's another point for another time. A question from Nick. What point in your ringing career did you start analysing the minutiae of your technique to hone it, rather than just trying things and trying to remember what works and what doesn't work?
Really good question. Much later in my technique, actually, I just kind of, I don't know, for the first. Actually, I can tell you exactly when. It was prior to York, actually. I just, I wasn't sure that I was going to be able to manage to ring York. No one's ever done it before. In fact, two females, and in fact other men as well, have not completed the whole distance on it. So I really went back to basics, and I really thought about it. I talked to quite a lot of people about their technique. And actually, if you were to go back and watch the video of me ringing Liverpool, you'll see actually my hand strokes, my arms aren't fully straight actually, and I hadn't realised that. And I got some feedback that I needed to catch the Sally higher, and I needed to have even straighter arms at hand stroke, and I adjusted it. I was like, I just hadn't realised. And it's only when I was watching those videos for this presentation I thought, actually, he was right. I'm not doing it right. So I have to say, it's only relatively recently, but it's because needs must, because I needed to get that right. But there's no harm in being quite sort of analytical about something. If it's not working, or it's hard work for you, or you end up your heart's racing at the end of it, probably there's something about your technique that you can finesse. And so again, get the video out, get someone to slow-mo you, and see what's going on.
Super, thank you. On an unfamiliar tenor, especially turning it in, Alexander finds it very hard to choose the right speed and to quickly get a feel for the right rhythm. Finds it much easier after he's rung a bell a few times with someone else more experienced on the tenor, but that's not always an option. How do you approach that?
That's another really good question. Well, like you say, I suppose you're watching to see what the speed other people are going at. I think basically really you have to get on the box and you have to just try it. There are some tenors that it's easier if you can get them going, or further up to balance, i.e. going quite slowly. But there are other tenors where people will say ring it below the balance. Birmingham Cathedral tenor is a classic example of this. You'll often hear Michael Wilby saying, ring it below the balance, it's easier. There must be something physical with what's going on in the tower in terms of sway or something. But I think you just have to play, and if someone gives you a bit of advice like that, take the advice and try it. And actually, I was turning Birmingham Cathedral tenor in on Henry Johnson dinner day, actually, and he said this to me, and I kind of like, no, I don't go really fast on big bells, because I haven't got body weight to counterbalance it. And he said, then go on. And we did, and we started accelerating, and actually he was right. So there must be something to do with what's going on in terms of the interaction of the speed of the bells. But you just have to play around with it, and slow up a bit. And is that easier? You can go a bit quicker. It comes as you practice, and of course you can't just go in straight away and know what speed a bell goes at best.
Super, thank you. There's lots and lots of well-deserved thanks coming in. We'll come back down in a minute. There's loads of messages, so as I say, we'll get through as many as we can, but I'm conscious we'll do the best we can. So, okay. From Will, I had some problems with shoulder pain some time ago that led to me having physio. The physio talked at one point about back shoulder muscles. Do you ever think about which arm or shoulder, chest or core muscles you engage?
I do. I do. Yeah, I do an awful lot, and I try my absolute hardest. I'm going to stand up to see if you can see me without losing my microphone. Try my absolute hardest, tilt the thing down a bit, to use these muscles here and then these muscles here, and to try, and whenever I'm having to start a pull, I consciously engage those muscles. So you have to get your breathing right. So you might be at full strength, and you make sure you've got a full breath. Tense, engage, pull, breathe out. If it's a really big bell, and I try and do that because I have to protect my shoulder. If whichever hand's on top usually does more work because it's going further. So most people it's their right shoulder, and I have to, because I have actually in my 20s. I had to have bloody ages of physio, and I think it was because I didn't quite have my technique quite right, and I was doing too much with this shoulder and not distributing the weight out across my back. And the physio said that my upper back right hand quadrants and my right was overdeveloped compared to the rest of the back. So I really quite consciously at that point tried to distribute the power, if you like, or the core muscles that I was using around my body an awful lot more, and use my front core an awful lot more as well. So yeah, you can really, you can damage your right shoulder. You have to spread it out a lot more, and the way of doing that is to think sinking down, bending your knees, sinking down, and not bending your back. So the more you can keep your back vertical, the more you'll be using your core, because you have to. I hope that answers the question.
I think it's really, really interesting. Richard says, thank you very much for the talk, Julia. I hope I'll be able to communicate your enthusiasm to some of the less confident ringers at Sherborne Abbey. And I think that's what this talk is all about, isn't it? I know when you spoke to me, you were really keen to engage people who perhaps don't feel confident with ringing.
Absolutely, yeah.
Most of the women I know who ring heavy bells are on the small side. So are the women and girls who regularly rang so are the women and girls who regularly rang our tenor. Does being small have some advantage, possibly being willing to try it?
Well, psychologically mean, possibly. I don't know. I don't, it certainly doesn't have any physical advantages. I can't think of anything physical advantages for being smaller or petite or lighter weight or anything. Maybe there is an attitudinal thing, I'm not sure. I'm not sure, but it's not just men. It's not just women. And there are, some, and Andrew Mills he's no physically bigger than me. I don't think Chris Kippin is, an ace tenor ringer, and he's not very big or heavy at all. So yeah, no, I think it's an attitude thing as well, isn't it? That, I want to have a go at this, but with with that attitude comes confidence, and obviously with confidence, you get that by trying and having a go, and also knowing what to do. And hopefully this talk is about helping with, how do I do it? And now I want you all to go and try it and have a go.
Super. Before we sort of conclude, Julia, do you want to talk about any more about the project that you're sort of engaging with the Central Council?
Sure. Yes. Sure. So it's really it's about trying to understand. At the moment, it's a project about trying to understand how some of the differences are between participation in of females actually in more, I'm going to go inverted commas, advanced levels, because what we know is that at the learning to ring, so at the learning to ring levels and the art levels, and we just know this by looking around, the gender distribution is roughly equal. So at the sort of grassroots level, if you like, the gender distribution is roughly equal. And then we look around us in terms of sort of female participants in 12 bell squads, in the competitions, in conductors and composers, participants in sort of more complex peals or long lengths or anything like that, and there is no even distribution. It's quite shocking, actually. And so the project is trying to understand, why is that happening? So the project at the moment is in a research phase, and so we're trying to sort of gather data, both qualitative and quantitative, to try and basically, are we right in analysing this? We know we're right. We can see it around us, and we're going to be trying to gather people's stories and people's opinions about why this is happening. So, maybe some of you will have had, have opinions about this. It might be to do with, I don't know, anything, sort of, opportunities being available or not, or attitude or culture, or even simple things to do with, where women are in their lives compared to men. I know, for example, I had a very quiet 15 years when I was in the height of my career, and I had babies and children, and I just wasn't doing as high profile stuff as I was in my 20s, and arguably I'm doing now. So maybe there's just a natural sort of answer for these things, but we don't know. We're just trying to the project really is about trying to understand that. And the reason why it's important, of course, is that there's a load of untapped potential there, and also if there is some kind of cultural issue, we want to know about that. That's not good. If people are not having an equal opportunity to progress and learn to compose or conduct or ring big bells or whatever it is, as much because of their gender, we need to be aware of that, and we need to be addressing that, because it could be switching people off, so it could be a potential retention issue, and as we know, we don't have, we're an aging population in this hobby, and we don't have the luxury of being able to have a leaky pipeline. So that's really what it's about.
Super. Thank you for that. I think it's from a personal perspective, I think it's a fascinating project. And I think just by the the sheer enthusiasm with people tonight turning up tonight, and people not able to come tonight, but wanting to, and just the engagement with the chat box, clearly there's something that's going to interest people. I think if people who attend tonight have any comments to pass on to Julia, if you want to email them to the SMG CBR Gmail account, I've just put it into the chat box. I'm more than happy to forward those straight on to Julia.
Or the other thing is that we will be, we're only a week or two, maybe 3 weeks away from actually starting to communicate information, and we're actually setting up a website to act as a place to hold the data. It will obviously go into Ringing World articles and things as well, but the crucial thing is the website will have a big shiny button on it saying, tell us your story. And what we'd like for people to do is to basically, submit anonymously, submit, their thoughts and opinions and feelings and stories and experiences, so that we can start to, gather lots of, lots more qualitative, is that the right one, data about this.
Super. Thank you so much. So I think if people are happy, I think we'll just sort of draw some concluding remarks. First of all, thank you, Julia, on behalf of the Smartens Guild. I think people can just see the amount of preparation you put into that, and echo your thanks to George Harter. I saw he came in through the talk. You know, I know you thanked him at the start, and on behalf of the Guild, thank you to George as well, because I know he put a lot of time into those videos. And the participants of the videos as well, you know, particularly Alison, who appeared in quite a number, and Luke for being brave.
You know, poor old Luke. I did say, "Are you absolutely sure about this, Luke?" And he's like, "Yeah, yeah." And you know, he's learned a lot from there. We've had some conversations about it. So
super. I know some people sort of, and I think you and I were worried about, Julia, that the videos and how they'd work. I think some people commented on the lagging. As I say, the recording will be on the website possibly tonight, definitely by tomorrow morning. It's on the St Martin's Guild website. We'll send the link out. If you go to the training section, there's a place for resources. This talk will be on there, as well as the PowerPoint slides. And actually, you'll see all of the talks. We've had a program of them, of which you know, you'll be, everybody can access them. You'll be very welcome to do so. And if the links don't work very well on that recording, I'll talk to Julia about how we can sort of get those out to people using YouTube.
Some of them are actually on YouTube as it is, but you know, I'm sure we can find a way of doing that.
Yeah, perfect. And whilst I've got this captive audience, in fact, Claire's just put the link to the in the chat box to the website. Thanks, Claire. Whilst I've got a captive audience, just 2 quick notices. Next Wednesday, at the same time, 7 o'clock, we have Chris Pickford, who's going to lead our talk, and he's going to lead a talk on the history of Birmingham bells. So I think that'd be absolutely fascinating, something quite different. And then the week after, on July the 29th, John Warboys is going to do part 2 of his composing course. He did part 1 a couple of weeks back, and the recording of that is on the Guild website. So if you're interested in that, again, there are 2 other opportunities. So I think, Julia, you can skim read through the chat box now, because you'll see a huge amount of thanks from people.
Oh, thank you.
Well deserved. You know, and from myself, thank you. You know, we're extremely grateful for all of the hard work you put into that. So I think if that's okay, I will draw the meeting to a close.
Thank you.
Thanks ever so much. Thank you, everyone.